All right, we gavel this meeting to order. The clerk will open the rolls for to see if a quorum is present. Members can take their attendance on the electronic voting board. All right. It is not urgent and important. I believe we have a quorum. Okay, we have a quorum. Now I'm looking, hanging on to, yep, I see. So if we could just stand by for a moment, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties with making sure that, there we are, there's the feed. Okay, all right, great.
Checking.
I am here. All right, if we can close, we do have a quorum is present. We're gonna get this underway. So we've got a quick, hopefully a short docket today of bills for this subcommittee on election administration. I believe Senator Eben, we have you up first with Senate Bill 346.
364, Madam Chair.
364, definitely.
I have a substitute.
If you could go ahead and explain the substitute before
Sure.
we adopt it.
It follows there are three things we're doing. We're adding to the protected voter list people who are elections officials if they feel the need or electors. Then we expand the intimidation and threats towards elections officials section so that it's not just an officer of election at the polling place, but rather it would be an officer of election or an election official or an employee of an election official wherever they're threatened regarding the elections. And then we add in members of the Electoral College. And then lastly, we provide a civil cause of action for those people if they are threatened, coerced, or intimidated through other means.
Thank you, Senator. I'd entertain a motion.
Move the amendment. Second.
All right, it has been moved and properly second to adopt the amendments. All the substitute, the substitute. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, the substitute has been adopted. Senator, you have the floor.
I think council has a line amendment on line 65.
Madam Chair, we'll be striking the word who is bribed. So what is posted online now doesn't reflect that change. Yep.
Okay.
Motion to adopt the amendment.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, the line amendment has been adopted.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. What this does is it acknowledges that the threats against election officials and poll workers in recent years, which has continued to be a trend nationwide, needs to see that our elections officials and poll workers, official poll workers, have that protection. A survey last year found that 1 in 3 local election officials felt unsafe due to their jobs. We just want people who administer our elections to feel safe in that civil service, and that those who would try and intimidate them or prevent the fair administration from elections face repercussions.
Okay. Are there any questions from the subcommittee? Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick question, clarifying question for the patron. I noticed, so with the amendment on line 65, striking through is bribed, is that a similar amendment that needs to be made in line 60?
No, because on line 60, it's a person who tries to bribe someone in violation of election laws or trying to willfully and intentionally prevent or hinder the elector. We don't want them to bribe them. We want them to be guilty of a crime. The other one is a civil course of action, and we didn't want people who actually accept a bribe to be engaging in civil action.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank the patron.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the bill?
Just be real quick. Tram Wynn with New Virginia Majority. This is very similar to a Delegate Shin's bill that you all passed out of this body before crossover, except with the additional of the civil cause. So we strongly support the bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, David Bailey here on behalf of the Voter Registrars Association of Virginia. We appreciate the bill that you reported out of here from your chamber, and we urge your support of Senator Eben's bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So it looks like we have comment online for, we have in favor, Bill Pritchard.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Bill Pritchard. I'm speaking here on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Virginia. And on this Senate Bill 364, which is I think what we're talking about here, if I'm not mistaken, the League urges you to support SB 364 because it offers much needed protections to the people who run Virginia's elections before, during, and after the elections. The bill extends the right to civil action, as well as protection against crimes, including doxing and swatting, to current and former officials alike. Thank you for allowing us to speak on this.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. Also, we have Lindsay. I know I want to get this right. You're here all the time. Zia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in opposition to SB 364. Is this the right time to speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I actually have some comments to read from another citizen who had some technical difficulties joining the meeting. And so the comments are, the SB 364 language amending 24.2-1020 is unclear with the phrase, any person who was a victim of any conduct that constitutes a felony or misdemeanor in this title. Note that the crimes specified, intimidation, for example, are highly subjective and could be considered permitted free speech under the Brandenburg versus Ohio case. Is the decision as to the conduct and whether it constitutes intimidation up to the self-described victim? No conviction of a crime is required, merely that an action constitutes intimidation. These are some questions to consider, and it seems to approach the slippery slope of a hate speech law specific to elections, permitting civil suits against media, legislators, political parties, and others who may question administering elections. So there were several sections of the bill that replace current code, where it's a little unclear how the replacement would impact with the new phrasing and language, and we're just concerned about some of these questions about free speech and logistics of the bill being applied, and we oppose SB 364. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Ned Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I rise as opposed to this bill as it's totally unnecessary. There are plenty of protections in our statutes now for any type of harassment, intimidation, or threats to any individual in Virginia. This singles out election officials who are not under a particular threat. If you look at what's happened in Virginia, there has not been a massive amount of these threats as indicated by the gentleman. As a matter of fact, he cites a Brennan Center survey of 1,000 election officials around the country, where 1 in 3 said they felt threatened. However, we have not been able to get the matrix of that survey, so we don't know exactly who was surveyed. We know this. The Department of Justice set up a hotline with an FBI phone number for reports of intimidation, harassment, and threats to election officials around the country nationwide. From that hotline, there were 1,000 calls in 2 years. 15 of them rose to the level of investigation. 10 of them were settled by out-of-court plea bargains, and 1 case went to trial, and the DOJ lost. We don't have a massive threat against our election officials, but what we do have is this: a very subjective statute where who is going to define harassment, intimidation, and threats? Is it a question? Is it the seeking of information? It's not clear in the statute. And like I said, there are many statutes now that provide protection for this kind of activity. And so for all of the above, I'm opposed to this legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from the subcommittee, Madam Chair?
Yes, so I wanted to thank the patron for bringing this forward and being open to some feedback. And it's because I actually have heard from registrars and election officials who, one, have been threatened, and others who are finding it hard to hire because there are people that are afraid of the threats and seeing things that are happening here in our own Commonwealth. And so I don't think that we should have to wait for a hotline to tell us what's going on when the registrars themselves, the lobbyists on behalf of the registrars themselves, have thanked you for bringing this forward and have also agreed to the bill. And so I just wanted to add my thanks to this and helping protect those that are actually carrying out democracy on a daily basis for us.
Thank you.
Delegate Henson.
I have a motion when appropriate.
Well, before the motion, I just want to acknowledge there are 2 comments online from Moore and Brim of Fairfax opposing the bill. We thank you for giving your comments online. Delegate Henson, you have the floor.
I would like to move this bill as substituted.
Are you sure? It's a question?
Support with substitute.
Move to report with substitute. And it's been properly moved in second. The clerk will open the rolls. Members record their vote on the electronic voting board. The clerk will close the roll, and Senate Bill 364 reports on a vote to it left. I think it was 6-4.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, next up, we will take Senate Bill 165. Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can you hear me? Okay. Madam Chairman, members of the subcommittee, before you, Senate Bill 165. This came as a result where we had an issue in my jurisdiction where some candidates simply started to try to get signatures on January 1st. There's some discrepancy whether or not those would actually count because the code was not that clear. So this is a technical amendment that's going to clarify that language. There was an Attorney General opinion that said you couldn't collect signatures on the 1st or they wouldn't count. But what my language does, it says the bill would allow potential candidates to start gathering on January 1st, and it really clarifies that language in the code. It's pretty simple.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions from the subcommittee? Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment on the bill. Thank you for bringing this bill forward, because as a new candidate, I did not know whether I should take signatures January 1st, but as a rule of thumb, I just did January 2nd, so there was no issue. So I just want to say thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the bill? In opposition?
Move to report.
All right, it's been moved and properly second to report Senate Bill 165. The clerk will open the rolls. The clerk will close the roll, and Senate Bill 165 reports on a vote of 8-0. Thank you, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next, we have Senate Bill 270. Senator. I've been doing it all day. I apologize. Senator, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to be back. This is SB 270. It basically gives both political or all political parties the option to do ranked choice voting for their presidential primaries. And so the idea behind this is, back in 2020, for instance, some folks had their candidate and their candidate dropped out well before the primary actually happened, but they voted for them early, and now that we have early voting. And so, they ended up, voting for someone, and that ended up not being really part of the election by the time the actual election day happened. And so that's one reason. The other reason is just the idea of ranked choice voting. A lot of people feel like in crowded primaries, if you have a plurality, you end up getting a situation where, perhaps the majority of people may like someone as the second best candidate, but the person who wins is just the person who gets 20, 30%. And so the idea is to just do this for presidential primaries. We put a reenactment clause on this anyway, so it's not going to take effect until next year. We got to come back and talk about it again. But I do think I want to get elect and other groups and people start talking about this. And so that was the reason for bringing the bill in the first place. And happy to answer any questions. I've got technical people who know some of the details about how it would be implemented as well. And I'm just glad we're having this conversation. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Gratitude, Senator. Are there any questions from the subcommittee? Delegate Bloxham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess a couple questions that I have, Madam Chair, if I could ask. Is this your idea, or was this brought to you by the Democratic Party or the Republican Party to hold an election, ranked choice voting primaries?
Madam Chair, I want to give myself all the credit, but I did not bring this on behalf of any particular party. I couldn't tell you whether they support or not, but this is just giving them the option so they can say that they don't want it.
A follow-up question.
Delegate Bloxham.
I guess the question is, I mean, I don't think it's allowed in the Republican rules to do this. So that's why I even asked the question. You know, is this putting the cart before the horse? I don't know if the Democratic parties asked for this. That's why I asked the question, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Bloxham. Delegate Srinivasan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, probably it's a question for you, or I think there is a representative from the Democratic Party. I was wondering something similar. What about the DNC rules? Or I'm not an expert, but what would they be in sync? What do they allow?
Do you want to?
Thank you for the question. Under our current, I actually serve. Yeah, I'm sorry, Susan Swecker, Chair of the Virginia Democratic Party, and I'm currently a fairly long-time member of the Rules and Bylaws of the Democratic National Committee. This is my third presidential process. We have spent hours and even days looking at this, but under our current plan for this cycle, we would not allow ranked choice voting. And so just to give you a little bit of idea how the process works, we review all 57 states and territories' plans, and we give approval or send them back for adjustments, but it's up to us to decide. So Virginia sends theirs to the Rules and Bylaws to get approval on operating. Under the rules that we have right now, this would not be allowed.
Delegate Srinivasan, any other one? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the bill?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. My name is Liz White. I'm the Executive Director of Upvote Virginia, nonpartisan democracy reform organization. We support SB 270. SB 270 gives the political parties the option to use ranked choice voting starting in the 2028 cycle, when both parties are likely to see large fields of candidates. This bill just gives them an extra tool, if they want it, to navigate those crowded fields and to identify candidates who have broad appeal and are unifying nominees. Upvote Virginia supports expanded use of RCV in lots of different ways, but presidential primaries in particular could benefit from RCV. And the senator referenced this when he was presenting. In 2020, in the Democratic primary, over 30,000 votes in Virginia alone did not get counted because they were cast for someone who was not eligible to receive votes anymore, right? We're Super Tuesday, it's late in the process, people drop out. And that especially affects our military and overseas voters who have to vote by mail. And RCV gives them more of a chance to be fully heard and to fully participate in that process, just as much as if they were in person on Election Day with all of the relevant information. We understand that this bill represents change at a pretty high level, but that's why we would urge you to get started right away. A long runway to the 2028 cycle is what's needed to make sure that the state and localities are ready to go if and when one of the parties decides to use this in 2028. This bill has a reenactment clause, so this is clearly an ongoing conversation, but I urge you to vote yes to get the ball rolling. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Delegate Srinivasan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was also, Senator, I agree with this concept wholeheartedly. That's absolutely no question or concern. I worry about the implementation. So I was wondering if where we are in our state system. I see the commissioner here. I don't know if she has any thought, or you have talked to them, Senator, about the implementation timeline, cost.
I have thoughts, but I'm happy to have her come speak as well.
Hi, I'm Susan Beals, the Commissioner of Elections. This was a bill that came up last year, and at the time in the Senate, Senator Deeds asked the department to write a report talking about what the limitations might be for implementation. We did write an extensive report. It covered all of the different voting system vendors that we have, what their capabilities are. One of the things that is holding us back is there is not currently a tabulator that's been developed that could tabulate the results of this election. And that's something that we would like to see first. Thank you.
And is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, seeing none, we will go online. We have Eli Wiegner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Eli Weinger. I am head of legislation for SERVE, Students for Equity and Reform in Virginia, and we are speaking in support of this legislation. This legislation allows for parties to choose ranked choice voting, so it doesn't matter what the DNC or RNC rules say now, though this law simply provides the ability for those rules to be changed later and for that rule change to have an actual effect. Furthermore, I find it somewhat troubling that the DNC and RNC have more of a say in this process than actual voters. Voters should be deciding the process, not just party committee people. That is why SERVE is speaking in support of the legislation. We strongly support ranked choice voting, and I will be brief. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Eli. Mr. Bill Pritchard. Mr. Pritchard, you are on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can.
Thank you. Bill Pritchard, speaking for the League of Women Voters of Virginia. And the League of Women Voters supports the expansion of ranked choice voting to presidential primaries as described in Senate Bill 270. We believe that ranked choice voting, or RCV, would make our elections more accessible, would promote nominees with broad support, and would ensure that every voter's voice is heard. The League asks this subcommittee to report out SB 270 to the full committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
And thank you. Mr. Ned Jones.
Yeah, I rise as opposed to RCV, this bill. RCV is a very confusing, difficult system of voting, and there's no need to expand RCV in Virginia any further than it's been. As you may recall, there was a test election, I believe it was in Alexandria, and it was a fiasco, so much so that the governing body made a decision never to use it again. And then when the person joined the board who had won the RCV election, they voted for it, and of course it's back. But it's a very confusing, actually, it is not more accessible, it's less accessible in terms of the training and learning how to use the system. And so it disenfranchises many voters. It's a system that's extremely complicated, and there's no need for us to change our system here in Virginia at all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Right. Thank you. And Ms. Lori Moore, I'm wondering if you're the same Moore who provided online comment as well?
Oh, yes, I am. Thank you for letting me speak. I oppose the concept of ranked choice voting because the tabulation method it requires suppresses the popular vote.
Ms. Moore?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
can you hear me?
Yes, we'd like you to turn on your camera if you're going to speak.
Oh. Okay, I'll have to try to do that. Hold on a second.
All right, Ms. Moore, while you get your camera together, we're going to go ahead and take testimony from Ms. Lindsay Zia.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm trying to start my video.
One moment. We're going to take another comment, and then we will come back to you, Ms. Moore. Thank you. Ms. Lindsay, you have the floor.
Thank you. My name is Lindsay Zaya. I'm with Virginia Institute Action. We're opposed to SB 270. We also have the same concerns about the implementation side of this bill, and our understanding is that the voting machines won't currently allow for ranked choice voting to be implemented on this kind of a level, and we think that the policies should be aligned with what's feasible right now, and we oppose SB 270. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Zaya. Now, Ms. Moore, you're able to turn on your camera. And if you're speaking, you are on mute.
Yes, I'm trying to get my video going. I'm sorry. In the past, you've allowed
we can't take comment
a
from
photograph of somebody.
Yes.
No, that's okay. I'm trying to get my video on.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Well, we also have your comments online as well that the committee can review, and some of us have already reviewed it. If you can't get your camera on, we will submit to your comments that you made online, if that's okay.
Okay, that would be fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you are in opposition.
Correct. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Is there any further comments from the committee, questions or comments from the subcommittee? Okay. Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if this is a question for Commissioner Bale or not, but you have already said that this would be delayed and that it would come in a little later. So I'm wondering, with all the changes that this would require, is that enough time? And it may very well be. I just don't know. But I would love to have a sense of the reasons people are in opposition, saying that our current systems can't support it. But my understanding is the patron is asking for the enactment to come a little bit later. I'd just like to have a little sense.
If I answer it, but I'm happy to have her also answer.
So when this bill came up last year, we were in this same predicament, which was we did not have a tabulator, and we're told it would be worked on. Not sure where that stands right now with the folks. That it's not something that we're building internally in ELECT. It's built by an outside group, the Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center. They have volunteer developers who built this. And so we were instructed to take time and look at how we would implement it on our side, but we still need to have the tabulator in order to be able to do a statewide ranked choice voting election.
Delegate Sickles.
Madam Commissioner, could you tell us how many people would have to have, if they did have a tabulator, would we have to have them in every precinct, in every jurisdiction? How many would you need?
So functionally, the way this would work is, people would vote their ballot, and then the first round will be tabulated in the precincts. And then to start the rounds, you would have to collect all of the ballots together in one place. So you would either have to bring them to Richmond, to the department, or designate a locality maybe that is the place that's going to tabulate everything, but you have to have the whole universe of votes before you can start tabulating rounds.
Thank you. Yep.
All right. So I did want to acknowledge that there were about 18 or 19 comments from Votes for Virginia, Progress VA, Norfolk, Fairfax, all these folks. So just want to acknowledge the online comments, the written comments we received. We do have them. Thank you for your comments and support. And then there was one, Ms. Moore, who was also online against. If there are no further comments from the subcommittee, the committee operates by motion.
And Madam Chair, just really quick.
Last word, Senator.
Thank you. I'm glad we're having this conversation. I'll say that I think there's RC Tab is a RCV tabulation open source software. It's created by a nonprofit. They're going to do an open source update next year. I think will be helpful. I think this we'll be ready by 2028. I don't think I would have brought the bill if we wouldn't. I think the issue of whether the parties want it or not, it sounds like neither party wants right now, but there's other parties, and then there's also the future beyond 2028. So it may be that in 5 years the Republican Party wants to do ranked choice voting on their presidential primaries, and then we have a system set up to do that. So this is looking towards the future, not just the next election.
Thank you, Senator. Committee operates by motion. Hearing none, there is a motion. One moment.
I move to carry over to 2025 under Rule 22.
Okay. Under Rule 22, it's been moved to carry Senate Bill 270 over. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, it's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No. Aye.
Right. I can't tell, so we can put it to the board, but all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Okay, all right, so it's been carried over. Senate Bill 270 has been carried over by a voice vote. Thank you. All right, next up we have Senate Bill 30301. Senator DeSteffe.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill 301 is pretty simple. This is, it allows any person or committee who gives them the right to appeal a civil penalty from the State Board of Elections. So today, let's say that your treasurer is on active duty and he misses an election period, so he misses a reporting period. Today, there's no way to appeal that fine or that penalty. Or let's say that there's a soil and water conservation district chairperson or member who doesn't raise money, doesn't spend money, and misses a financial report. They would be fined with no way to appeal. What Senate Bill 301 does is gives them the opportunity and a structure to appeal that fine or that decision. I'm happy to answer questions, go into much more detail, whatever you need. I even have hundreds of examples if you'd like.
All right, thank you, Senator DeSteffe. Are there any questions from the subcommittee? Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Senator. Funny you should use the example of the soil and water conservationists because we have heard that conversation, and I think we have a Senate bill and a House bill working on them specifically. With the examples that you have, are they of people that were wrongfully at the time were they wrongfully fined? Because I think the examples that we heard and why a lot of us supported the legislation from specifically Delegate Bloxham was because it seemed unfair, but it was done in a legal way. So with the appeals process, do you have examples where there are, I guess, errors in some of these?
Madam Chair, Delegate Price, in answer to your question, we have, I had one individual that their mother passed away. They flew to Japan. They missed the reporting period because they flew to Japan for the mother who passed away. That was the treasurer. When they came back, they were only allocated 5 days. So if you've not said something within 5 days, there's no way to appeal it. You automatically get the fine. So when we tried to get into this, and somebody who was yanked in Florida to the Florida National Guard when the hurricanes and flood hit, on theirs, the treasurer responded because they were in National Guard in Florida. That whole thing, they were gone for 3 weeks, so they got back, they did the report. Again, there's no way to do it. On soil and water conservation, we have one lady who's in her, she has a little more gray hair than me, I'll just leave it at that. She doesn't do computers very well. She's never raised a dime. She's never spent a dime, yet she was fined because she missed numerous reports, $4,100. And there's no way to appeal that. She doesn't make any money on the Soil and Water Conservation Board. There's no way to appeal it. And so her and her husband ended up taking out a loan to pay the fine. I just don't think that's kind of what we had in mind. And this is one of the only processes where a board can find somebody and there's no appeal process. So what this does is gives an appeal process for the individuals looking at a multitude of reasons for it. When I contacted the voter registration board and talked to a few members, a couple of them used to be in the House. I may have served with one of them. They actually brought up there's no resolution, there's no way to appeal this. We need something to be able to do that. Otherwise, they were in violation, they broke the law, and there's no way for them to appeal it. So this gives an opportunity of a way to appeal it. Now, did they break the law to the letter of the law? Absolutely. The one lady, her mom passed away. She flew to Japan. There was no way for her to get to Japan, handle her mom, get back, and do her treasury duty. You know, from a compassion standpoint, I think that I would have waived that or figured out a way to waive that, but there's no opportunity in code to do so. So this provides that opportunity. And I actually have literally hundreds of examples I can go through if you want, or I can drop by later and provide them with you. When you start reading some of these examples, they get worse and worse. You're like, why would we ever charge somebody $6,100, $4,100, $4,100, $2,100? And it's every one of these is something very similar.
I can't call on myself, but I will. I have a question, Senator. So I see what I, at least from what I hear, is the opportunity to appeal, but not the standard by which an appeal would be, like how would it be adjudicated? And we would waive fines under these sorts of conditions. So, but are we relying on the board to sort of have a heart, or what is that to what standard are they?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, the standard is one that if there's supporting documentation, if there's good cause shown, and our boards have been very reasonable, like the Board of DPOR, Board of Contractors, our medical board, they're very reasonable with when they apply fines or don't apply fines. So we just provide the opportunity to appeal. We leave it to the discretion of the board, because when we appoint these boards, we put reasonable people on there who make reasonable decisions. If they don't, then we reappoint somebody else to that position. We want to give them the opportunity here to say, yes, that should be a fine, reduce the fine, or completely eliminate the fine. And on a case-by-case manner, there's no way to codify every single one of these situations.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the bill?
Yes. Let me get out of your way.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, David Bailey on behalf of the Voter Registrars Association of Virginia. In case you wonder why we would be supportive of this bill, in its initial form, it had registrars involved, and they did not want to be involved in the appeal process and all, because it may relate to someone who was one of their employers. So we worked with the senator, and by the time the bill started moving in the other chamber, the registrars were taken out of it, and we appreciate that very much, and in that sense, support the bill.
Thank you, David. Madam Chair, I've not heard anyone in opposition, and we've put this online, we've put this out there, I've spoken all over the Commonwealth about this, and have not heard one person in opposition. This is one of the only places where we apply penalties, and there's no way to appeal those penalties.
Copy. Thank you, Senator. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the bill? Okay. Seeing none, online we have Mr. David Pritchard. Bill Pritchard. My apologies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The League of Women Voters of Virginia supports this bill, Senate Bill 301, and the need for providing clear rules for appealing penalties relating to candidates' filings through the State Board of Elections. Thank you for your allowing us to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. And seeing you're the only one online, just wanted to acknowledge the comments of Bodie of the League of Women Voters Arlington for his written comments. Are there any further questions or comments from the subcommittee? Delegate Green.
Quick question. Did this bill pass out unanimously?
Madam Chair, Delegate Green, yes, it did.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Sickles.
I just have a question for the patron. Sounds like it's something that needs to be done, but doesn't the elect need to put together some kind of rules and so they would know? I mean, they'll be able to give relief if your bill passes, but based on what? I mean, how, they're going to start a whole new, you're going to have the first case will be first impression, and would there have to be a rulemaking before they could start doing this?
Madam Chair, Senator Sickles, I'm sorry, Delegate Sickles. I just
Whatever.
promoted you to the upper house already, but I remember that the House did create the Senate. I'll be honest with you, I think that after talking to members on the State Board of Elections, every one of them said, we got this. I mean, this is not a hard thing to do. We wish we would have had the ability to do this years ago. And I had talked to one of them. I said, well, why didn't you ask me to do it years ago? And it would have saved a lot of heartache from what we've heard around the Commonwealth. And this past year was pretty bad. We had an enormous amount of folks with violations. And I just looked in a small area, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Accomack, and Northampton, and we had over 100 different violations. And we looked up in Fairfax as well, and they had over 100 violations, very similar over an equivalent time period of, I asked them to look at 3 years. And I was like, well, clearly it's a problem. We just need to figure out a quick way to fix it. And on the state board, we give them the opportunity and discretion to do a lot of other things. This would be one that I would truly want to leave to their discretion. There's so many individual reasons for this. I don't think we would be able to truly codify it. And I don't think they would have a problem doing this. As I've talked to many of the members on there, everyone's like, we got this. So I'd like to give them the opportunity because I think they truly have this and understand what they need to do.
Delegate Sickles.
So I know there are like standard fines if you're late on your filing your financial disclosure form or whatever. And then the reason that these outrageous, this is a question, the reason the outrageous fines have come around is that people didn't know that they were in violation and they kept piling up based on current fines that they have. How did they get to be $4,000?
Madam Chair, Delegate Sickles, the one that was $6,000, I'll give you one that's even more egregious. Soil and water conservation, the lady never, ever, she didn't raise any money, she didn't spend any money, she didn't do anything with it. They told her at the end she had to close out her report. So she went in and did a closeout report. Then all of a sudden she's hit with $6,100 worth of fines because she hadn't done anything for 6 years. And so the first one is $100 and then it's $1,000 per period after that. She's like, I don't make any money. I don't spend any money. I don't raise any money. It's soil and water conservation. I kind of do this on my own. And truly the soil and water conservation have been a majority of the violations on this. One of the individuals, they went and it said, are you done filing? So they hit, file report, done filing. Well, when they hit done filing, it actually closed out their entire record, and it wouldn't allow them to, in the next reporting period, it would not allow them to do anything because they truly closed out the entire filing for them. Then they had to try to figure out, well, how do I now reopen it and restart this because I hit the wrong button? So it gives, it truly, the way we've structured this is to educate and then enforce when the education process doesn't work. This is a way to kind of get us back in line with what the intent of this was.
Delegate Sickles.
One more question. I don't know if you said this early on, but did the current state board, are they the ones who said this is a good idea?
Madam Chair, Delegate Sickles, yes. I've talked to 3 current members who said they wish I would have brought this up 10 years ago. I said, we were serving in the House together with one of them, he and I, and he never brought it up to me, or I would have brought it up. Heck, I was looking for bills to carry back then.
Thank you. Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This may be for you or the Uber Chair. The patron brought up soil and water. Didn't we pass a bill relating to soil and water to address this issue? I think I see the delegate over there.
And Delegate Henson, I would answer yes, and I'm going to actually go ahead and give the patron to that bill the floor. Delegate Bloxham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, soil and water should be corrected, but there are a lot of other people that got caught, which was my original bill for local offices. When we exempted, it used to be that localities with 50,000 or less were exempted from having to file through the comment system. We took that exemption away, so then everyone has to file. And in my localities, probably one of the worst. I think the comment was our registrar put the funds on correctly. So, we'll leave at that with what it may. But we had a couple people that school board candidates, $7,100 fines, $5,100 fines, and there's really no way that they can actually come back and appeal it. I don't know if their appeal would be approved or not because they didn't hit the deadlines, and the deadlines are pretty clear. You missed the first one, it's $100, and then everyone after that's $1,000 added on. So I'm not sure what the appeal would look like, but at least would give them an option to call someone's beside me, because I could not help them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further comments or questions from the subcommittee? Seeing none, the committee operates by motion.
Move to report. Second.
It has been moved and properly second to report Senate Bill 301. The clerk will open the rolls.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much.
It looks like Senate Bill 301 reports on a vote of 5-3. Okay. Lastly, we have up Senate Bill 351. Senator, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the committee. Senate Bill 315, it's a voter registration of the DMV customers, updating existing registration, provides that information gathered by the DMV for a person who's already registered to vote is to be automatically transmitted to the Department of Elections for the purpose of updating an existing voter registration record, name or address change, and to return a voter to an active status from inactive status as appropriated. Under the current law, a person must be presented with the option to decline to have this information transmitted to the Department of Election before such information may be transmitted. Again, the simplest ways to put it is that instead of someone going up to the DMV and changing their address, they get the question asked if they would like to update their voter registration to the new address. This would take that question away and automatically send a notification in their new address saying your voter registration has been updated. You don't have to do anything if this is correct. If it's incorrect, then you would have to correct that. States such as Kentucky, Colorado, and Michigan have already put this in place. And Colorado, since they put this in place, has identified and updated an extra 200,000 outdated records per year. If Virginia is successful in doing this at a similar rate, it'll essentially save taxpayers millions of dollars in undelivered mail alone. And the other thing is, in addition to just the cost saving, the proposal would save election officials one of their most precious resources, which is staff time, because a lot of individuals, when they move and they don't hit that box, they will do same-day registration. They will try to, they're not thinking about it when they're updating their addresses. That will lead to less same-day registration at the polls for folks who failed to or at least did not make those updates.
Thank you, Senator. Questions from the subcommittee. Delegate Bloxham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple questions. Could you explain the transactions again? Did I understand that once you changed the address, would you follow that up with a mailing, you said, or not? Yes.
Madam Chair and Delegate, so right now, if what the bill is asking, and if we do this, and you went up to the DMV and changed your address, you moved somewhere else, they would automatically send that information to the Department of Elections to say somebody updated their address, and the Department of Election would go ahead and update their voter registration to that new address, just like you do with your, depending on the locality you live, your car tax bill that you get. You would get a notification at that new address indicating that your voter registration has been updated. If this is correct, you don't have to do anything. If this is incorrect, then there's something that you do have to do.
So follow-up question, Madam Chair.
That is the intent.
So I'm worried about the physical impact. I was looking that it says it doesn't have any, but it would appear to me that it's going to have to. And how much difference, I guess, council, is this difference? Didn't we have a bill similar to this?
We did have a bill that was similar to this, Delegate Askew's, that was HB 565, I want to say, and we continued that to 2025.
What's the difference, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, between that one and this one? Is it basically the same?
So this one has this one had a substitute. Those bills did start out identically. This one does try to bifurcate a process where if you come into the DMV and you're already a registered voter, because of access with Veris, DMV would be able to tell, oh, you're already a registered voter, so they wouldn't pose those questions to you. But then if there is a change to your address or your last name, then there is a mailing after the fact. And then if you are not a registered voter, or when you come into the DMV is able to tell you're not a registered voter, then it goes through our standard AVR process.
Thank you.
All right, Delegate Henson.
Disregard, Council answered my question
All right.
about House Bill 5.
Delegate Wasserman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, if I could ask the question to the patron, if we send the letter to the voter, what happens if that letter gets sent back and not delivered to the elections?
Madam Chair, that is something we did not consider. Again, when somebody updates their address at the DMV or online, we assume that it is the corrected one, but it would potentially get kicked back to the Department of Elections.
We do, I believe, have someone here from DMV that could maybe provide a little bit more clarity. Or
thank you.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I was conferring with my colleagues from the DMV. I did not hear the question.
Delegate Wasserman, would you like to repeat your question?
Certainly. The question was if elections sends the voter the letter letting them know that their address has been updated, and for whatever reason that letter doesn't get delivered and gets sent back to elections, what happens with that registration at that point?
Anyone who has undeliverable mail is flagged for a confirmation mailing later in the year to confirm that they still live at that address. Any undeliverable mail would fall into that category.
If I could ask a follow-up?
Delegate Wasserman.
What happens if that confirmation comes back as well, too?
If that comes back, then they would be placed on inactive status. And then after 2 federal elections, if they did not respond to any mailing or have any voter-initiated action, meaning they didn't show up to vote in any of those intervening elections, then they would be removed.
Do you have any follow-up? Okay. Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question relates to how would this work for students who may have one address as a mailing address, but another one dealing with physical? Is it just going based upon the physical address as it relates to the DMV and what address they're using?
Madam Chair, that is my understanding. The way we written this is even when you're a student, you have to pick which one is your permanent residency versus your temporary. And I could refer back to the folks in the elections office to ask what address they go by.
So I'm not sure if there's a substitute that is a today substitute. Okay, all right. If something has changed. Right now, the way the process works, when you go to the DMV, you can do a non-consent, which means you can say, I do not want this information sent over to elections. My understanding is this bill undoes that. So every single transaction gets sent to us. So that's doubling the number of transactions we receive to a tune of about 1.2 million, which means those will then be sent to localities, which means those will create mailings that go to each person who says, even though there wouldn't be a non-consent option anymore. Any transaction that you do at the DMV, whether you wanted to change it or not, you would be sent a mailing saying you went to the DMV and this is what you said your address was.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. Delegate Bloxham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, to answer Delegate Henson's, mine's a P.O. box on my driver's license. And I don't know how that interacts with the Department of Elections, but mine is actually a P.O. box.
Delegate Bloxham, who are you hiding from? Are there any further questions from the subcommittee? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the bill?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Adisa Muse. I'm here representing Secure Election Project, with advocates for nonpartisan election security reforms. And we feel this is a very great bill. Too many customers decline, even if their record is outdated, because they don't realize that their record is out of date. Others say no because they're eager to finish their transaction or unsure whether they have time to correct documentation and to proceed. And so the weakness in the current system that this bill seeks to correct is that it depends on the voters' knowledge that their record is outdated and their willingness to take time in the middle of what can be a time-consuming process to agree to update their record. And so we stand in support of this bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Elijah Lee, and I'm the co-president of the Virginia chapter of Voters of Tomorrow. We are proud to support SB 315, as we know that this will make the process of transferring voter registration automatic, which we know oftentimes will make the process easier. We see this as a profound step forward in voter accessibility, and we thank you for this opportunity.
That was very good and very brief. I appreciate that. Looks like we have some comments online. Eli Wegner, Weinger.
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. My name is Eli Weinger. I am head of legislation for SERV, Students for Equity and Reform in Virginia, and we are here to speak in support of the bill. Voting should be easy for all voters. We should make voting easy and accessible. We shouldn't be putting up extra barriers, especially for working folks who don't have a whole lot of time to struggle to understand the mystifying bureaucracy. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Eli. Mr. Bill Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The League of Women Voters of Virginia supports this bill, this Senate Bill 315, because it would help ensure that voters who are already registered to vote in Virginia are registered in the correct precinct. Many people forget to update their voter registration addresses, but remember to update their addresses for their driver's license. While it's true that eligible citizens can opt out of automatic voter registration once they are registered, this proposal would make it easier for them to keep their registration current and accurate. Not only would the bill help voters, but it would also assist in maintaining clean voter rolls. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. We have Ms. Lindsay Zaya.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Lindsay Zaya, and I'm with Virginia Institute Action. We're opposed to SB 315. We absolutely understand the intent of this bill and support that intent to keep current and accurate voter rolls here in Virginia, but we have some concerns with how this bill would plan to carry out that end. First, we just believe that individuals should be aware when their personal information is being transmitted, even for such a good purpose as to keep accurate and updated voter rolls. We just believe that people should be aware and be able to have their consent given before that transmission occurs. And then second, just adding DMV to further be involved in this process. Just adding that layer can be prone to more errors versus just an individual citizen, registered voter working with their general registrar or election administrator at any level. For example, when I first registered to vote here in Virginia, I registered through the DMV. But then because of a computer error that happened, my information wasn't transmitted properly to my general registrar and to the State Department of Elections. And so just because of technicalities like that, more errors can occur the more and more that any other entity is involved, even when they're doing their best to properly transmit the information. And so we believe that it'd be the best practice to have consent for transferring information and to work with election administrators to keep accurate and current voter rolls. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Zaya. And I want to go ahead and acknowledge the online written comments of Ms. Moore, who also signed up in person and had some issues technologically writing in opposition to the bill. Are there any other questions or comments from the subcommittee?
Madam Chair, if I could speak to the bill.
Delegate Watson.
I come from a very small town. We have our local town elections, and 2 years ago, our election for town mayor was tied 39-39. The tie was broken by a mail-in ballot that came in postmarked election day, met the guidelines. Because that was the only mail-in ballot, it was kind of obvious who the person was. In checking on it, we found out that the person that decided who won our town mayor's ballot had never spent a night in my small town. They had purchased 2 houses that they were going to rehab as an investment. As part of that process, they changed the car registration on one of their vehicles so they could use that to qualify for a federal grant. Unknowingly, because I guess the person didn't read that opt-out, that voter did not realize that they had just changed their voter registration until Election Day, and somehow they were able to mail in the ballot on Election Day, and that one person who had never spent a night in our small town of Stony Creek decided who that mayor was. So for that reason, it's difficult for me to support this bill. And I also had one question, if this needs to be referred to appropriations for those additional postage costs that we discussed earlier.
All right. Thank you for your comments, Delegate Wasserman. I did not receive any notification for appropriations on this one. That being said, if there are no other questions from the subcommittee, the committee operates by motion.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Hinton.
Continuing with what we did with House Bill 565, I will move to continue this to 2025.
It has been moved to continue Senate Bill 315 to 2025. Is there a second? All right, it has been moved and properly second. The clerk will, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Senate Bill 315 is continued 2025. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you.
All right, that is the business of the committee. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. It has been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Y'all don't want to get out of here? All those in favor say aye. All right, all opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.